Okay. So you guys can see a whole mess of contours going on right here. So all my dashed, all of those things are my existing contours coming from my existing terrain. Then I have my proposed terrain that I just showed in the other file. So that one, and I have those grayed back because that's normally how we're showing those, is more of a darker gray instead of just showing the normal red and yellow. And real quick, kind of how I do those. So if I come into my calculated features, I go to my contours, go to my major and my minor. Oh, I can't control those because those are referenced. I'll show how that works on the other one. But if I turn off my level overrides, I wonder if it'll let me do it in here. Closed. They are off. Okay. I will have to show that differently then. I'll show that when I do the proposed complex terrain. So again, I have two terrains in here. The reason why I have proposed and existing is because, again, I have to have two terrains in order to create a complex terrain. This will kind of be a benefit in both ways. So right now it's going to be a proposed complex terrain. I have the existing in there because then if I want to have something for offsite drainage for basin delineations, different things like that, I can utilize the existing and the proposed for that. The proposed complex terrain, I do want to try and create pretty quickly. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and have whatever corridors I've developed, I'll go ahead and create a proposed terrain. And again, another reason to use graphical filter, I can update those, update that terrain as my corridors keep updating, as I add different elements and things like that. Those just kind of go in as time goes on, as the project keeps improving and as we get more detail into it. So under terrain, again, open roads modeling terrain. Under additional methods is where I'm going to create complex terrain model. So I have complex terrain model. So I have my proposed and then I have my existing. So I have append and merge. And the way that this works is append, I'm just going to add that information to it. Merge it, I'm going to make sure that things connect together. Merging it, though, I'd have to make sure I check where those connections are, make sure those contours are aligning, those types of things as well. So what I do is just add those in. Feature definition, right now it's on none. I'm going to go to terrain. I'm going to go to proposed. And again, I'm just going to go to my 5-foot major contours. I'm going to then name this whatever the numbers are, the project number, terrain, or actually survey, terrain, and then proposed. And I always put complex behind it just so that I know, because I'm also going to have my survey terrain proposed, which is like my main terrain that I added up here. So that's what I'm going to name that. So I'm going to come in, just hit finish, and what it's going to do. So I'm going to turn off and make sure I have that. Okay. I'm going to turn off my references so you can see what it did. So let's see how this doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of really weird contours going on in there. So I can right click to here. I can come edit terrain model. Actually, I'm going to set it active, or I can even come over to my properties, and down at the bottom, there's an edit as well. So I can click that edit. Notice when I said append, so it's just going to add things together. I don't want it to add things together. I want it to merge into. So I'm going to show merging into. I'm going to hit apply. And notice that all of a sudden my existing went away. The reason why it went away is because I made my proposed as a primary or as the primary surface. So by doing that and adding that as the primary surface, that's going to just show me that complex terrain. So again, this is a complex terrain. It has an element ID of different number, because the other one was 5597, something like that, I think. And now it's 3492. So each time you create a terrain, it's going to give you a different element ID. So we want this to stay. We want this to be our terrain as we go through the project. So meaning, again, if I added, if a development gets added in here, or if I have some kind of proposed something else that I have to add in, if I have the proposed pond that like Matt was doing, I can add that in. That then becomes part of my my complex terrain. Because then if any one of those go corrupt, or any one of those I need to add more additional information into in a different spot, I have a terrain that everybody can use, every specialty group for the project that needs to use the terrain. And this is the terrain that they would use. They know, they just have this updated terrain. So if there's things happening in the background, that's okay, because this terrain is what needs to be used. And again, if something goes corrupt, it's not going to break what they're doing because they're utilizing this terrain. So again, this showed up as primary. So if I want to use something as an offsite basin, I can come in again, I can use this over here, go to edit. I can switch the two of these around. So instead, okay, let's make my existing primary. And then let's make my proposed merge into that. So you're going to see that shifted around. Now I have a terrain that makes sense that goes all the way through. So you can see here, probably need to do a little cleanup on the outside because there's some things kind of going on. So really need to kind of look at what those are doing. But for instance, like all of these different roads as they come in, okay, that makes sense. The side roads, okay, those are making sense. This looks like a surface. Now I can utilize this for an overall drainage. That I may end up, you know, making sure that I have something for that. That may be a separate file for just existing proposed. And what I would end up doing is then probably referencing this terrain into that, creating a complex terrain off of that one for offsite drainage, proposed basins, and those things to have it show up the way that we need to on this. So for my intents and for my purposes, what I want to make sure is this is my proposed terrain. So I want to make sure that that is the main one. So I'm going to come in and make sure that I have that. Then if I get additional information, I can add it in. I can take my existing out, replace it with whatever. I've got this complex terrain that can be used throughout the project, and I'm not deleting or moving it around or doing anything else with it. So that's where I would make sure that I have a complex terrain file. That's a best practice. Kind of moving forward, and again, kind of goes into a little bit of digital deliverables, but it also helps reduce crashes, helps increase efficiencies, and also just helps like anything discontinuities, especially with drainage or utilities and things like that. So that's on again under the additional methods and creating the complex terrains and utilizing those. So I think, Sar, we can stop recording.